Dear Mr. Fantasy, play us a tune, something to make us all happy. Do anything, take us out of this gloom. Sing a song, play guitar, make it snappy. The opening lines of the song Dear Mr. Fantasy are played over the signature Marvel title cards in Avengers Endgame. This is no accident. This is the result of a group of people thinking about a film's internal themes and finding the right piece of music to fit them. A somber classic rock hit that reflects the film's main character, Tony Stark, that in many ways tells the story of Endgame before you even see it. The lyrics speak of a man with the gift of music, a power so great that he could literally shake us out of apathy. The song reassures him that, were it not for his gift, we never would have known him to begin with. A sense of inevitability is echoed as the lyrics are repeated. Tony, our Mr. Fantasy, will have to fulfill his destiny, and he'll make it snappy. This line was probably just sheer luck based on the events of the film. But why do I bring this up? It's just these few moments of a song that demonstrate the true art of filmmaking that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has brought to us time and time again. This is where in a formal essay I would break into the history of the MCU and the foundations that it planted back in 2008. I would talk about the groundbreaking pool of talent it perpetuated over the course of 22 films in just 11 years. I would say how it created a new status quo for what films can be, and a host of copycats that were sure to follow. But this isn't going to be that kind of essay. I'm no scholar and this is no journal. I'm just a guy who really likes movies, and I'm going to prove to you why the MCU movies can be counted among the best. Before George Lucas sold Star Wars and superheroes were in comic books, there were these things that people would watch called movies, and now they don't exist anymore. The end. But seriously, there are those who believe this. These are the same people that distinguish movies and cinema as two separate entities. As if when one says cinema, a film is instantly art. These people, I'm not naming names, Martin Scorsese, have said that Marvel movies aren't cinema, but are something more in line with theme parks. But Marty's favorite film is said to be The Red Balloon, and I don't know about you, but that movie sure looks like a kiddie ride to me. Now there is value in old films like The Red Balloon, believe me. I know, I had to watch it 17 times in film school. But there's also value in superhero films too. They're just in a different genre, like any other genre. That being said, let's make the case for Marvel against an 80-year-old man, because I care about this. So back in the days when there were still movies, there was this genre called the Western. Westerns were films that depicted the American frontier period, usually between 1865 and 1895. And unlike Old Town Road, they were really good. Westerns were generally about the dichotomy between wilderness and civilization, violence versus peace, stark heroism and villainy, and ponies. They usually followed a lone hero who arrives, gets involved with isolated issues using his or her abilities to solve problems that civilization just can't. In doing this, they would reset the status quo and then move on, because they didn't belong in society. Don't know much about genre? Well, then blindly listen to me, because I'm a board-certified genreologist, and I know my stuff. I spent 4 years in genre school, and I'm the president and vice president of said school. I mean, what have you done? Back off! Anyway, I digress. I bring up westerns because, unfortunately, they're dead, and they ain't coming back in the foreseeable future. See, genres are a lot like ogres. They appear in cycles. Or was that layers? Well, genres come in cycles. The western cycle was popular in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and then began to fade. But an argument can be made that they've been replaced. Like stories of old, westerns were considered uniquely American myth, and now a new kind of film with mythic background is prevalent, the superhero film. See, much like the western, the superhero film is usually about similar themes, if not modified for a contemporary audience. The disruption of a status quo and the fight to bring it back, a hero who operates outside the law using their abilities to save the day, and the dichotomy between a corrupt civilized world and how the hero is necessary to bring order to that chaos. Not a lot of ponies though. Shame. But don't take my word for it. Let's look at the critically acclaimed Guardians of the Galaxy. Quill seeks to use his theming skills to escape his past life and make a new one for himself. Throughout his journey, he meets a group of equally selfish strangers who also seek redemption. Only through each other and their realization that using their abilities for good, i.e., saving the galaxy, can they truly find retribution and redemption. Sounds a lot like another movie, Shane. Now you might be like, are you going to try to compare one of the greatest films of all time to Guardians of the Galaxy? Yes, because I feel like it. Shane follows a handsome rogue with a shady past, who seeks redemption and a new life by aiding peaceful homesteaders. Only by the virtue of his skills as a violent gunslinger can he restore the status quo and save the farms of good families. The same can be said for The Magnificent Seven, another western about a group of rogues, who also seek redemption and band together to save a town by virtue of their skills in violence. Granted, Shane has a lot more going on under the surface than just that and is about said violence, but so does Guardians, which is about finding a family and the power in having people you can rely on. And I'm sure Marty would agree with my assessment about Shane's greatness. So then what's the difference between something like Shane and Marvel? Well, I'm glad you asked. Much like the values of the Old West Americana, that sense of rugged individualism and core set of American values is no more. So too are the stories of the Western. Contemporary stories reflect the zeitgeist of our time. They feature unstable, socially awkward, cynical, and often selfish sets of principles. And it is this selfishness that is prevalent in the superhero film. Think about it. Iron Man, Guardians, Thor, Hulk, Spider-Man, even The Dark Knight. They are all motivated by selfish personal reasons, and throughout their respective films they learn to fight for others. So unlike the Western heroes stumbling into trouble on their mythic journeys, now our heroes contribute to the problem. The themes have adapted to the times, but the motifs remain the same. This isn't a bad thing. It allows for growth in the heroes we love. In a sense, it's the backbone of the Marvel formula of success. Marvel has been criticized for simplistic, predictable plots, boring villains, and CGI action fests. Yet people keep coming back. It's because of the heroes themselves. Their multi-film arcs and rapport with one another make us want to see how they evolve into increasingly better people, since they all began as selfish pricks. Take, for example, Captain America: Civil War, a film in which the heroes are the villains of each other's stories. The main event isn't even a giant blue skybeam battle against a generic villain. It's an ideological battle between our most beloved heroes over an issue of freedom versus control. So while the edgelords would say that they were there for the action and to compare to comic book accuracy, the real reason the film works is quite simply because the themes and the message. The structure of these films in general is similar to the serial films of the early days of cinema. So if you've ever heard an old person say, Marvel movies are like TV shows, they just keep going and are really boring, well then look no further than the gods of cinema themselves and the original cinematic universes that inspired their own canon of work. Newsflash, Marvel didn't create the idea of the cinematic universe. The Lone Ranger, Rin Tin Tin, Flash Gordon, and the Universal Monster films date back to the early 20th century. And I know this because of my doctorate in cinematic universology. So a bit earlier I made a blanket statement, and it's 100% correct because I'm always right when no one else is speaking. The gods of cinema are the filmmakers of the new Hollywood era of films, which began in the late 60s and lasted until the 80s. These mavericks were the likes of George Lucas, Francis Ford Coppola, Steven Spielberg, William Friedkin, John Carpenter, Sidney Lumet, amongst many others. Oh, and let's not forget our friend, Marty Scorsese. Their young revolutionary film movement is arguably the catalyst for some of the best and most remembered films ever made. And all these guys grew up and were at least tangentially inspired by the serial films of their childhoods. While we don't remember those classic serials so much anymore, we certainly remember New Hollywood, and I'll prove it. Easy Rider, Jaws, The Godfather, Rocky, The Exorcist, Halloween, Dog Day Afternoon, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Star Wars, and Taxi Driver all emerged from that movement's spark. Somebody, I think it was Jesus, who once said that there were only 7 stories and everything else is a variation. But even if there really is only one story, the ever-ending fight to escape cliché doesn't come from reinventing the wheel. It comes from theme, character, and morals. Or better yet, the reason for the story to exist in the first place. Why did the film begin and end where it did? What did we learn? How do we interpret the meaning of what happened? And did we walk away with anything? It is this reason that some movies stay with us. We can quote the lines or remember the iconography, and why some films are lost to time. At the beginning of this, I said that any movie could have value, and I mean it. Even bad ones. Often we could find the best of what we like in things we don't, or at least open our eyes to new perspectives, even if we don't like the material. I'm particularly interested in bad superhero films, because they're more in line with what Marty Scorsese is talking about. Take Suicide Squad, for example. Many people liked it. They got something out of it. But here I would be in the Martin Scorsese category, yelling at these kids like they left a bag of burning dog shit on my porch. You'd be surprised how much in common Suicide Squad actually has with a bag of burning dog shit. So to not get too pedantic, Suicide Squad fails on every level of filmmaking. Directing, editing, music choice, production value, even acting. But especially in storytelling, plot and depth or lack thereof. Like a burning bag of dog shit, Suicide Squad is misleading. It sits there, alluring your eye with its bright signals, saying, "Hey, look at me." But like a burning bag of dog shit, it quickly catches your attention. But as you move closer and examine it, you first get the smell. Now, there's no smell-o-vision with Suicide Squad, thank God, but I'll equate smell here with feeling. It's off-putting, and it wavers in tone so frequently that it makes you confused on how to feel. And this is just the first few scenes I'm talking about. You're introduced to characters with wonky trailer freeze frames, there seems to be no immediate story or action to follow, and the music is so jarring that it could have come from any random person's iPod mix of generic pop hits. Once you've noticed the smell, you become weary of the bag because, like I said, it's burning, so you can't stop looking. The same with Suicide Squad. I mean, right around the 45-minute mark, you look at your watch and you think to yourself, is this going anywhere? Because they're still introducing characters and there isn't even a plot. And then ultimately you step on the bag of shit to put out the fire on your porch, and you realize what you're stepping in. Suicide Squad. When you finally get to the mind-numbing action and the loose exchanges in the city, you don't even have time to breathe. You're now at the point of no return. You've stepped in the poop, and you're an hour and a half in and they got you. This movie's about nothing. The characters have no goal. The twist makes no sense. Heck, it even has that giant blue sky beam that people are always going on about. And then the movie's over. You learned nothing. Everybody had the same arc, if you could even call it that. They learned the value in working as a team, I guess. While I can understand the novelty of the odd poop gag now and then, I don't seem to get movies like these. This must be what Martin Scorsese's talking about, and why he thinks superhero movies are more like passing attractions. There's no point except the momentary exhilaration. When a movie is as apathetic as Suicide Squad is, the number one thing it's missing is a moral, a reason for even existing, a soul, if you would. Soul could be described as depth, understood tacitly through the visual medium of film. It is that hard to describe reason of why we love certain films, why they move us, and why they last. It is the heart of the film, past the action and the plot. It is moments, and Marvel is full of them. It is Tony Stark emerging from the cave, having built Iron Man, his greatest creation, from a box of scraps. It is Odin giving Thor hope as he finally realizes what he must give up in order to ascend. It is the Avengers, a group of misfits finally working together, ready and willing to listen to Cap despite their egos for a common goal. It is the cassette tape that Peter Quill got from his mother, only daring to open it when he found a new family, and the Marvin Gaye hit that plays as the Guardians all bob their heads along to the music that connects them, heart and soul. It is every time that Captain America says, "I could do this all day," and the different meanings it has in each context. It is the tear on Rocket's face, as he tears down his armor and shows that even the hardest of hearts can feel love. It's T'Challa saving a man's life when he sought revenge, realizing it was better for his soul to save a life than to take one. It's Cap standing on the hill looking at insurmountable odds, tightening the strap on his broken shield, demonstrating you should never give up, whatever it takes. It is a look of forgiveness, a touch of the hand when times get dark, a hug of relief. It is a smile that makes you reflect on the entire film when you let it set in, the bad guy won. It is Tony with his eyes on us as he tells us he loves us 3,000, showing appreciation for his audience while simultaneously sending us the message, everything's gonna be okay. There are little sparks of joy when you realize how everything connects too. And I'm not talking about, hey, Ant-Man is in this, guys, did you see Ant-Man? It's a universe. No, I mean character, themes, and moments. Like, think about the through line at the MCU. One of the most prominent arcs is Tony and Cap. In a way, they're the main characters of the MCU, and they're destined to collide because of the universal themes of fatherhood, brotherhood, love, and trust. All themes that are actually prevalent across many of the 22 films. It's fun to see our characters grow and still operate with consistency. Tony loves and trusts Steve so much because he represents his past, his father, and a better outlook on the future. He loves this man so much he keeps Steve's burner phone in his pocket at all times for 2 years because he knows someday he will need Captain America. Hey, I bet you never questioned why it was even called S.H.I.E.L.D. It's not just a coincidence that the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistic Division, an organization of global peacekeeping, literally spells out the word SHIELD. It was Peggy Carter and Howard Stark, its founders, that made it to honor the man and the friend that they worshipped. These are the moments and the ideas that make Marvel what it is, and separate it from just bad theme park ride films. And I could have went on, but I think you got it by now. But if you didn't, and if I didn't persuade Martin Scorsese, it doesn't really matter. Because superhero films are in their cycle now, and until that cycle fades out, they're here to stay. I mean, I guess after all that, it's just a cop-out, but some genres just aren't for certain people. Like, you might hate westerns and like Old Town Road. I mean, you're wrong, but you might. But there is still value in westerns. Superhero films are our modern-day myth. They are stories of heroes saving us and restoring the status quo. And while every Marvel film might not fulfill all of Joseph Campbell's mythic archetypes as well as George Lucas did with Star Wars, Marvel heroes are on different kinds of heroes' journeys. So you can't even call out cliché, whatever that means. Marvel films are genre hybrids. They take on the past motifs and syntax and they make it their own. They may all feel similar and operate with internal consistency, but you get gems out of that formula. For example, Thor Ragnarok is a comedy, while Winter Soldier is a spy thriller. And even DC films can be good. I know it sounded like I was taking a dump on them before, but Wonder Woman and Shazam seem to get this formula, and make for compelling films in their own right. Not to even mention the crowning achievement of the Dark Knight trilogy. The MCU has provided us a new outlet to tell classic stories of heroes and villains, with the themes and morals to back it up. The thing about morals is that they're for all ages. Bad movies are for no one. When I think of moral, I think of Pinocchio, saving his father from the whale Monstro, literally going into the belly of the beast and facing himself to truly become a real boy. Pinocchio isn't as simple as teaching kids not to lie, but it's about seeking the truth in oneself. These kinds of moments make me all tingly. They are the magic of stories. But morals aren't just of the Disney variety. They are of myth-making itself. Myths being the stories we pass down for generations, since the beginning of time. The same 7 stories with different themes and messages added along the way. An historical game of telephone with our ancestors, showing that some things have everlasting effect, some things are universal, and some stories are worth telling. I believe this will happen with Marvel films in the years to come. They're our modern myth, and their stories worth telling, and I love them 3,000. Except Phase 4. Yeah, now they all suck. That everything I just said is null and void. We're fucked.